Welcome back to Finding the Truth series, where I present a step-by-step guide on how to find the truth of our existence. This is part 3 of the series, and in this part I will be answering the question, where did everything come from? In order to answer this big question, we have to use our observations. So what do we see around us? Well, we do not see things pop out of nothing, and we observe that causes lead to effects. We also observe that every action leads to a reaction, and we observe that everything is dependent on something else. And finally, we observe that everything changes over time. Let me give you examples of all of these observations. For example, we see a painter that paints a painting. The painting would never come about if the painter never used a paintbrush or used his arms to create the painting. In that way, a cause is needed to create an effect, and many examples as such can be given. An example of dependency is, say you have a phone. Well, the phone cannot function without an electric source, and the electric source cannot provide electricity if it wasn't supplied by, say, solar panels. And the solar panels would not be able to produce electricity if it wasn't for a sun. And the sun would not be created if it wasn't for a nebula. And this chain of dependency can go on and on. This is just one example, and there are many others that can be given. And then an example of change is, say, a person hit a ball on a pool table. The billiard balls will go in various directions. Also, say you have a chain. The chain would eventually rust over time. These are examples of changes that occur. So then we ask the question again, where did everything come from? Well, in order to answer this question, we have to trace back the chain of dependency, change, and causation. Well, you might ask, wouldn't this chain go on forever or potentially go on forever? So what's the point of doing this brain activity? Well, the reality is that it cannot go on forever, and that is because the present occurs, meaning me talking to you right now, you watching this video, and anything else that's occurring at this moment. Let me explain this by analogy. Say I asked you to fill a well with water, and say that I want the well to be full of water such that the water comes all the way to the top of the well. Now, if the bedrock was not present, meaning there wasn't any bottom to the well, you would fill the well forever and ever, and it would never come to the top, meaning the water would never come to the top. However, we know that a bedrock is present, so the water would eventually come to the top, as it would accumulate in the well. Similarly, the present occurs because there's a bedrock to all the chains of dependencies and all the chains of causations that we talked about. If that was not the case, then the present would not occur, i.e., the water would never come to the top of the well. Let me give you another analogy. Say you had a chain of dominoes, and say this domino that I'm circling with my cruiser is the present. If there was an infinite amount of dominoes before this, then the present would never occur, because an infinite amount of dominoes would have to fall for this to fall. But since the present does occur, meaning this domino falls, there had to be a termination, or a person starting the initiation of the falling of the dominoes. In other words, we have to conclude that since the present occurs, there had to be some sort of bedrock, or some sort of starting point. As such, we conclude the following. We observe dependency, change, and cause and effect in reality. The chain of regression for these cannot be infinite because the present exists. Since the present exists, then there has to be a termination point of dependency, change, and causation. Therefore, an independent, unchanging first cause must exist, otherwise reality wouldn't exist at all. I hope this makes sense, and this will be further discussed in our upcoming videos. Please follow along and continue to subscribe and like, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you guys for watching.